Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I am joined by the beautiful Cody Fuhrman. Cody, how you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I am doing very well. I am very excited to have you. But before we start talking about why you're here, Cody, I would like the people that don't know you to get to know you real quick. Cody is a lifelong admirer of the macabre. She launched her blog in 2019, Cody Loves Horror, as a way to celebrate all things dark and scary. Now, what gave you the ambition, the drive to actually start doing the blog?
Okay, so I was a stay-at-home mom, and I started the blog right after my second child, was born. I kind of felt a little bored, and I wanted to do something that I thought was fulfilling, and I wanted to pursue an area that I'm passionate about. So,
Sure.
that's really it.
Well, and that's how I stumbled upon you. But more than that, you're not just a blogger. You're not just a horror fanatic. By day, you'll find her working in historic preservation and giving tours at the local history museum that is super duper haunted. So, how look, okay, I'm not trying to be that guy, but I'm not a huge believer in the supernatural. I feel like if that was the case, my mom would have came and kicked it with me by now. That's how much she loved me. But what are some of the experiences you've had in the local museum to make you think that it's haunted? And I look at before. I'm not trying to say it's not. Like I'm not trying to be condescending or anything like that. I just love to hear other people's experiences as well.
Yeah, and it's totally understandable. My husband is not a believer. His whole family doesn't believe, and I think they think that I'm a little kooky for believing. So I get it. I get it. So I personally have only had one experience, but I can tell you a few experiences that other people have had.
Yeah.
So I decided to, with a fellow staff member of mine, we went up into this room where we have this whole creepy doll collection dating back to the early 1800s. And we set up a camera. We decided to just try to ask the spirit some questions. And within 2 minutes, we had a full disembodied voice that we believe said, "Hold my doll." And one of our elderly board members has been there for a long time, and she said, she heard this and she said, "Oh, that's Emily." Emily is a member who had died 2 weeks prior to this, and many of the dolls in that room were donated by her. So kind of interesting.
Yeah, I probably would have quit that day.
I mean, I love it. But if you go back on my Instagram, I have that clip if you're interested in seeing it. Other people have seen full body apparitions. Brandon Alvis, who was on Ghost Hunters, he did an investigation of the museum, and he captured 2 EVPs, a little girl and an older gentleman. And we've also had a psychic come in who talked about a lot of spirits that were there.
That's insane. It's just amazing to hear other people's perspectives. And I would love to become a believer. I'm one of those people, if I can't see it and I can't touch it, it's not real. That's just how I've always been. I would love to believe, like I said, my mom, I would love to be able to have a conversation with her again, even if it was just, "What's up? Your face is beautiful and I love you." But on top of that, because like I said, you talked about being a stay-at-home mom, and now you're in all these different things that are so amazing. Like you've worked with the History Channel, Discovery Plus, Netflix, Sony, Universal, Paramount, Warner Brothers, Blumhouse, promoting their horror, promoting their true crime and paranormal content. That's all like some of the biggest names, not just in horror, but in media. What's it like when you get connected to a project with some of those people?
It is incredibly exciting. I have a whole shelf that is dedicated to just the promo materials that I've received to work on campaigns for these movies. And I'm very proud of this. It's, it's really cool.
As you should be. Everybody, one thing that even you and I have had conversations about is how everybody in this community should be pulling for each other. We should be rooting for each other to succeed, because the more people we get into horror, the better off we all are. So whenever I hear about, you doing things like that, there's no jealousy, there's no envy, there's just pride. Like, I'm so proud of you and the things that you're able to accomplish, because these are stories and objects that you're going to be able to, as a father, you're going to pass these down to your kids and have these things to be able to show your kids, the stories to tell them. And that's something that money can't buy, the experience you can give to your children through this stuff. So, and one last thing I wanted to talk about, because I'm a huge coward and everything in the world scares me, especially the thought of deep water. But
Wait, hold on. Before we move on to that, you're a horror fan. So how does that work for you?
Isn't it hilarious? Love horror movies. Grew up watching horror movies. Horror movies are my thing. Haunted houses, nope, not gonna do it. I'm not going in there. People are gonna jump out at me. It's gonna scare me. It's gonna piss me off. Go away. I don't like it. Like, I am the biggest scaredy cat in the world. When it comes to movies, it's like a drug for me. I get that adrenaline. I get that, I'm chasing that dragon. But when it comes to real life stuff, like you're a scuba diver. Like, that's what, and I could never do it. There's so many things, the thought of it. And not only are you like a scuba diver, but you have advanced scuba diving accreditation with the Scuba School International and Professional Association of Diving Instructors. Like, this is real what you're doing. Like, it's not like, hey, I went scuba diving with my friend and we've seen a dolphin. Like, you go in on this. What got you started in doing something like scuba diving?
So I took a trip to the Maldives with my mom, and we were there for 2 weeks. And this is going to sound really bratty of me, but the Maldives are kind of boring. And one of the only things you can do there is scuba dive. So the hotel that I was at had a huge scuba diving school there. So I just, on the first day, I signed up for all the courses, and I was scuba diving 3-4 times a day the whole time that I was there. And I love it. I'm somebody that does have a bit of a fear of sharks. It's always in the back of my mind when I'm swimming in the ocean, but it's so different being under the water with the sharks, because you can see them.
Right.
They're not sneaking up on you. So I think that has helped me face my fear. And I'm very interested in history. And so specifically, I love wreck diving, and wrecks from anywhere from the 1600s to the 1800s. There are so many of them all over the world. And I think those are really cool. They fascinate me.
Sure. And I think, like, if I was going to go scuba diving, that is the one thing I think I would want to do, is check out a wreck. Like, I think that is something that would be, because that's such a big part of history. And, I'm there down at the bottom of the ocean with this part of history. Like, I can totally understand where you're coming from there. But one last thing, because like I said, you are one of the most entertaining people in the world. You have this like exciting, amazing life. And after all that, you still had time to get your BA in sociology. Like, everything that you do, like, I'm telling you right now, being a mom is one of the hardest things in the world.
Oh, I'm sure you've been with your wife since high school. Yeah. So it is it's incredibly difficult. It's a lot. It's a lot.
And especially for you to do all the other things that you've been able to do with your life, all the accomplishments that you've made. It's nothing to poo-poo at. Like, you should be very, very proud of yourself. And it's something that, like I said, you've gone and you've gotten an education. You had amazing hobbies. You do amazing work in the horror world. It's just like all these things that you're so prone to doing. And we're all so happy. And I'm so happy that we made this connection. So I got to learn how horror started for you. That's my big thing. But what made you want to, before we do that, what made you want to decide to pursue sociology?
This is such a bad answer. I heard that it was the easiest major. And so that's originally why I chose it. And then as I started taking sociology classes, I realized that I was excelling in those classes more than any other subject. And the nice thing about sociology is that you can sort of tailor your course agenda to specific topics that you're interested in. So sociology is really the study of society. It's the way in which specific things interact with society and the way in which society influences almost anything. So you can take classes on the sociology of music, the sociology of medicine.
Sure.
Most of the classes that I focused on were inequality, social movements.
Okay.
All of that really interesting to me. How women and people of color and LGBT are not treated well in this society. And so that's all really interesting. And it's kind of, in a way, like real life horror.
Oh, no
Yeah.
joke. Well, and it's amazing that we still haven't come far enough in a society yet where we can be accepting of every single person, regardless of skin color, race, religion, sexual orientation. Who they are as a human being is none of our freaking business. Like, it has no bearing on your life whatsoever what this person does in their bedroom. Just keep it that way. Shut your mouth, move on, stay in your lane. So
yeah,
I completely agree with you.
And what we don't realize is the average white person are the levels of inequality that many groups face. Mm-hmm. We only, I would say, scratch the surface of that, and it's what we hear about, but there are so many levels of inequality. The other reason that I loved sociology was that criminology is a field of sociology. Mm-hmm. So I took a lot of I took 2 criminology classes, and I also took a lot of criminal justice electives, which that interests me too, because true crime is something that I'm extremely interested in.
Right. And it's one of those things where you're going to excel at it if you care about it. The more you care about it, the more you're going to excel with it. So I haven't said this yet, guys, but all of Cody's social media links are right down here in the description, including the blog. So make sure that you guys are paying attention. Make sure you're following her so you can stay up to date on everything she has coming up in the future, because this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's going to be so many more amazing things that are coming from Cody. And every time she has a post on Instagram, I get more and more excited, whether she's going to a different place and getting pictures of it. There's so much fun things that you can be a part of just by following her on Instagram. So make sure you're clicking these links down in the description below. But in order for Cody to love horror, horror had to start for Cody somewhere. So now, Cody, I would like to go back to the past and talk about what got you started in the horror genre, your first horror movie. And Cody, the first horror movie you watched was
Night of the Living Dead.
And I just got to do some clarification here. Are we talking about 1968 or 1990?
1968.
Yes, they are coming to get you, Barbara.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Yes.
One
This
of
is one of those movies that I really think to this day has a huge impact on what horror does. It's a movie that has a very big social message, but it's a horror movie first. So do you remember about how old you were the first time you had seen Night of the Living Dead?
Yeah, and sorry, before I answer that question, I want to say that Jordan Peele is, although he only has a few films, I've seen enough to say that he's my favorite director. And I've always thought it's really interesting that Romero was a huge influence of his. Anyway, I was about 5 or 6 when I saw Night of the Living Dead.
And that's such a young, impressionable age. And it's one of those things where, you're watching this movie for the first time and you don't even know what zombies are, but they're this scary, foreign thing. Do you remember who you were with the first time that you had watched it?
I was alone.
Oh, even better.
Yeah.
And it's one of those, like I said, I still consider this movie to be super iconic, and it breaks barriers on so many different levels. I mean, even like we were just talking about with the
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
I mean, you look at even Shaun of the Dead, they named the mother character Barbara, and there's a scene where they call her and Ed takes the phone, "We're coming to get you, Barbara." Like even today, they're still, honoring this movie. So talk about effective, talk about great scenery. Which scene was it, Cody, that affected you the most?
Oh, okay. So I wrote this down. So I'm going to just
Totally
use my
fine.
iPad because I have a lot to say about this.
Yeah.
Hold on just one second. Okay. Can I give you two scenes?
Of course. I want to know everything.
Okay. So the very first scene that affected me the most would have to be Ben's introduction. From the very moment we see him on camera, he's exactly who I would want to be during a zombie apocalypse. Barbara, our first protagonist, is frail, afraid, confused.
Oh, only 10 more minutes? We don't have very long to wait. We can leave.
She aimlessly wanders around the farmhouse until Ben arrives, and within minutes, he has formulated an exit strategy. He's fashioned a weapon with a household object, he's killed some zombies, and he turns that farmhouse into a zombie fortress. I remember thinking, I want to be this person during a zombie apocalypse or any kind of crisis, really. I don't want to be like Barbara. Barbara's a joke. I wanted to be like Ben. Ben is a hero. Ben is a survivor. I wanted to be like him, and I still do. I think Barbara can be seen as a metaphor for the unfair way in which women were seen during that time, how women were unfairly characterized by men as helpless, overly emotional, serving little purpose outside of the home. So the second scene that affected me the most would be the very last scene, and I think that many people who have seen the movie would agree with this. Romero has me believing that it's all finally over. It's a new day, the sun is shining, Ben made it, he's weathered the storm, and then he is shot dead. Were they police officers out of uniform? Was it just a group of white guys with guns? It's hard to tell. Not that it matters, but I remember thinking, wait a minute, this is not fair. I had seen enough movies at that age to know that the heroes are not supposed to die. I later learned in a horror film class that Night of the Living Dead was a representation of the political and social climate around race and towards people of color. I think the ending really shows how rigged the system was for people of color back then. It didn't matter if you did everything right, you were not allowed to succeed.
And what I love about that answer is one of the darkest endings in horror movie history. Like you said, like you're pulling for this guy the whole time. And in 1968, to have a strong black male lead, defending and protecting a white woman and going against the other white guy and telling him how wrong he is, and us rooting for this, person of color was pretty much unheard of at this time. And
Yeah.
George Romero was just like, I don't give a shit what you think. This is my film. It's going to be a success because Dwayne is the best guy for the job. And you're right. Like when you see him come up out of that basement and you're like, he did it. Our guy made it. He won. And then you get the shot and you're just like, how?
What
Why?
happened?
Especially when we're children, because I watched this movie at a very young age as well. And I didn't look at it as a black guy in the house with a white woman. I looked at it as the good guy. You know, the
Yeah.
good guy died for no reason. And as you get older and you start to dig into, you know, the social commentary and the social issues that Romero is trying to portray in the film, it becomes even more heartbreaking to think about Ben's death in that moment. And like you said, that the way that you described it is brilliant. You know, the way that no matter what you do, no matter how right you are, just because the color of your skin, you're not going to win. You've lost already. And I'm going to
Yeah.
make sure that you lose.
That's a very good way of phrasing it.
Yeah, and it sucks. That sucks, you know, but it sometimes, you know, not every story has a happy ending. You know,
Yeah.
there's not always sunshine and rainbows. And some of my favorite movies have the sad, you know, The Mist, American Werewolf in London. These are all movies that have the darkest, saddest endings. And that's how it is sometimes. Like that, yeah, that's just how it goes. So we know which scene affected you the most, Cody. But what would you say your favorite scene from Night of the Living Dead is?
So this is terrible, but I would have to say that my favorite scene is when Harry is killed. I
Yes.
I hated him from the beginning. That guy was the worst. He charged in and acts like he was smarter than everyone else. And in reality, he added little to no value to the equation.
And he hits his wife. You could tell he's been hitting, you know, he's hit his daughter throughout her childhood. And he's the definition of a bad guy.
Absolutely. And when it came down to it, he was a coward. It was all bark and no bite. And to be completely honest, I sort of wish he was killed by his zombie daughter in addition to his wife. I think that he deserved that.
Well,
That would have been the icing on the cake for me.
I do love the zombie daughter kill, you know, when she does the, you know, the gardens, the Mason spade, one of the best scenes of all time. Because one thing that's always really irritated me are the people that talk about, you know, 2004's Dawn of the Dead. You know, oh, the zombies run. Zombies aren't supposed to run. Watch Night of the Living Dead. Zombies use bricks to break windows. They use mason spades to kill their parents. Nothing saying what a zombie can or can't do. So I love, that's one of my favorite kills of all time with the mason spade in the basement.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Now, is this a movie that you would visit more than once, or was this kind of like a one-off for you at the beginning?
So in the beginning, it was a one-off. My parents were downstairs doing God knows what. I was upstairs watching it, so I don't think I had many opportunities to see it again at a young age. And then I did not revisit it. It was depressing and shocking to me that I didn't feel the need to revisit it until that horror film class that I mentioned, where I had to watch it and write something about it. I don't remember.
Sure. Well, I mean, and this is a movie that, not like I said, not only has it stood the test of time, but we did get a Tom Savini remake in the 90s. Did you watch the Tom Savini, Tony Todd version, or did you skip out on that one?
I didn't see it.
I will say this, and I know this may be blasphemous to a lot of people. I prefer the 1990 version. I think that the acting is phenomenal. Tony Todd does a great job. Barbara Tillman does a great job. There's so many, or I'm sorry, Patricia Tillman, Barbara. She does a great job. She's not this weak, you know, mild. She's a badass final girl in the film, and the ending's a lot different. I will say the ending will throw you a curveball if you've never seen it. And you know, remakes are kind of all the rage right now anyway. Would you like to see it redone again today?
I don't know, because I haven't watched, is it 1998?
1990.
1990, sorry. I have not watched that. So depending on how much I liked that, potentially yes, or potentially no.
Right. Well, I will say, if you get the chance, watch it. Tom Savini directed it. He also did makeup on it. Bill Moseley's in it. Tony Todd's in it. Patricia Tallman, like I said, one of my favorite final girls in that film. Like, she's just a badass. Like, Henry's death, a whole lot different. Or Harry, I'm sorry. Harry's death in this movie is a whole lot different also than it was in 1968. This movie takes the same core concept of what 1968 did, but at the same time, it adds in its own flavor of things. And, George Romero was a big person on set of this movie. I hope you get the chance to watch it. And if you do, text me. Let me know what you think, 'cause I would love to get your opinion on it. So we've talked about Night of the Living Dead, your first horror movie, what that movie means to you. But real quick here, Cody, my little buddy Ghostface is here, and he has a question for you. What's your favorite scary movie, Cody? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
God, this is so hard to answer for me. It's
And
like,
that, you know what? Like, I always tell people what I'm going to ask them. I never include this question when I send my questions out because I don't want you to think about it. I want that seat of your pants. I'm on an airplane for 3 hours. I can only take one movie with me. What movie would you take?
that is really, this is probably, I will give you one out of a list of probably 25. I can't
Sure.
say, I can't just say one that's too hard. It's like choosing your favorite child to me.
Mhm.
But I would say Us by Jordan Peele's Us.
Mhm.
I think that it is on a deeper level, really interesting. And I also, I think it's terrifying.
Yeah.
That movie really scared me. But I would say that this is kind of embarrassing because probably my favorite movie of all time and my favorite show of all time are not horror, which I probably shouldn't be saying this, but my favorite movie of all time is Gladiator. I've seen it probably nearly 100 times. It's a movie I could just watch a zillion times. I think it's phenomenal. And then my favorite TV show of all time was The Leftovers. I don't know if you've seen that, but incredible.
In the interest of transparency, my favorite TV show of all time, Futurama. Got the Bender tattoo. And my all-time favorite movie is Back to the Future. I think that
There we go.
I think Back to the Future is just the most entertaining movie I've ever seen. I don't think it's the best. I think I've said this 1,000 times and people laugh at me. This isn't a joke. I think the only perfect movie that's ever been made is Pee-wee's Big Adventure. I think that movie is perfect. It's the perfect movie. I could watch that movie on repeat, but just Back to the Future does something special for me. I don't know what it is, but there's just something about that movie that clicks. And I think Pee-wee is the best movie, like the most perfect movie ever. But my personal favorite's Back to the Future. So I get it. We love horror. If I had to choose one genre to watch forever, it would be horror. But to choose my favorite movie of all time, it would be Back to the Future. Absolutely, hands down. So I get where you're coming from with that. We love horror, but it's not our entire existence.
And it's because I love so many horror movies more than any other genres.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it more difficult for me to choose. That's
sure. That's a completely fair answer. See, I'm lucky. Like, my first horror movie is my favorite horror movie, and that is House from 1986. My boy Roger Cobb. That is my baby. Like, I watch that movie still probably 10 times a year. Like, it's again so special. Like, that's the movie that started it all for me. That's the movie that got the ball rolling on horror for me. Absolutely adore it. So, Cody, before I let you go, I have one last question for you. What we're going to do is we're going to
wait. I keep interrupting you, but all I want to say is that one of my new, I would say, my pillars of content strategy for my blog is to incorporate film locations into my weekly postings. And I recently shot the House and House 2 location. So that will be soon.
I can't wait. Like,
Man.
I'll be drooling over. Like, I live in Michigan. You know, I'm a Michigan guy. We took a trip to California 2 years ago so I could see the house. Like, that was something I had to do. Like, we went there, we went to the Elm Street house, we went to the Halloween house, like we went to all these different places, but the house was the one that I had to go to myself. Like it was just, it was such a breathtaking moment. Like I'm looking at this house and I'm hearing the orchestral opening, at the beginning of the movie, and it's so special. And I can't wait to see your pictures. Like I said, that's one of the things that attracted me to what you do is we connected through Instagram, and I'm looking at all these things and I'm like, wow, she's genuine. She's legit. Like this is something that really, really, really means a lot to her. And please don't think I'm gatekeeping. That's not who I am. But there's a lot of people that get into horror for, a couple weeks and then they're done. Like, oh, that was cool. I had fun with the people that I, knew, and then, I'm back to whatever. It's really fun to see the people that are genuine, true horror fans that stick around, that love it year in, year out, no matter, they're watching the same horror movies in March that they would in October. That's great. We need more people. And that's what I'm saying. Like when people are like, I love watching horror movies in October, don't be mean to those people. Invite them in. Be like, listen, watch it in November, December. There's a lot of great Thanksgiving and Christmas horror movies too. Keep the ball rolling. Keep these people in the genre with us. So,
yeah,
what I want to do.
I would
No, go
say
ahead.
that prior to starting my blog, one of the things that sort of made me realize that this would be a good thing for me to do, a few months earlier, I was at a party and I started talking about my favorite recent movies, which were all horror. And one of my friends said, I have never seen you so happy and engaged when talking about horror movies. Like I've never seen this side of you. So it kind of made me realize it makes me happy. It makes me happy.
At the end of the day, if we're lucky, and I mean, if we're lucky, we get 100 years on this rock. Don't spend any of that time miserable. You found something, Cody, that makes you happy, that truly, truly, besides being a mother, which is obviously the best thing in your life. I know that from the conversations we've had, I know how much your children mean to you, which is super special. It's amazing to find parents like that. But to find these passions and these hobbies that make you truly, truly happy before we're gone, there's not a lot of people that can say I've done stuff that makes me truly 100% happy. So the fact that you found these things, you pursue these things, you've tackled these things, and you own these things, it's amazing. And it's an inspiration to other people too. So always keep that feather in your cap too, to know that you've done these things that a lot of people hope to do. Like I said, man, if I went scuba diving, you might not ever see me again. I might just faint and die out in the ocean. But you're doing all these amazing things. You're living this amazing life, and I'm so happy for you. Like honestly, just not even as a horror fan to a horror fan, from one human being to another. I'm so happy for all these amazing things that you get to say you do, and you do them well. And you guys, if you don't believe me, the links are down here in the description. So make sure you're clicking those and checking her out. Follow her on social media so you can stay up to date on all the new locations that she's doing. That's the first thing that me and her connected on, with some of the filming locations that she was shooting at. So make sure you're following her so you can stay up to date on those as well. Now, what I want to do real quick, Cody, is bounce back to Night of the Living Dead. And what we're going to do is rank this movie on a skull count. Now, we're not ranking it on acting, production, score, nothing like that. What we're doing is ranking Night of the Living Dead on how much it affected you on your first viewing. So 0 skulls being not effective, 5 being extremely effective. You can use half and quarter skulls anywhere in the middle. And Cody, what would your ranking of Night of the Living Dead 68 be?
Easy answer. It was my first horror movie. I had never seen a zombie before, right? Just the ending was shocking. There were so many things about that movie that really, really affected me.
And to this day, one of the best stories ever told on film. So we are at the end of the third act, guys. The credits are about to roll and the curtain's about to drop. But before they do, I'm going to tell you one more time. Follow Cody on all her social media links below. So, Cody, please don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions for you.
Okay, thank you.
Everybody else, no problem. Thank you. Everybody else, as always, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.